As an interior designer, you may come across different situations when it comes to creating a 2D plan. Now that you have learned on how to draw surfaces and edges in SketchUp, it's time to have a look at those real-life situations. Let's talk about the first one. Imagine you have a friend or a client who has asked you to redesign a kitchen for him or her. For the purpose of this discussion, I will refer to your friend as a client, as it's essential to maintain a professional approach even when working with family or friends. Suppose your client does not have any plans from an architect or a builder. In that case, you would go and visit your client and you would start by sketching the rooms on a piece of paper or maybe your iPad. Maybe your client doesn't live close by. In that case, he or she may provide you with a sketch that they already created. In either case, you would end up with something that may look like this. Obviously, you can also mark electrical sockets, water outlets, sewage pipes, etc. For this purpose of understanding the approach mainly, I only drew doors, windows and walls. You can find this PDF document in the download section. Now this is obviously not a scaled plan, so it doesn't make sense to import this into SketchUp. Instead, we use guides to build our plan. We have two approaches here. As I mentioned, we start with creating guides by pressing the key T, or you find the tape measure on the left toolbar. It doesn't matter where we start drawing, since SketchUp has the infinity ground, but it makes sense to draw close to the axis, since we can use those as our anchor points. We know the measurements of our kitchen. You can always have a look at the PDF that is provided in the download section, as I mentioned. So now we know our kitchen has a width of 3690 millimeters. So we snap to the green axis and we type in the measure. This will create our first guide. Now we snap to the red axis and we type 6930. Now that we have our guides, we can use the rectangle tool to simply create the inner rectangle of this kitchen. Now we also need the outside walls. Let's say this wall is 150 millimeters thick, which equals 5.9 inches. We again use our tape measure to create outside guides, and then we can create the other rectangle. We now have the frame for our walls. You can remove the guides by selecting them one by one and use the backspace key to remove them. Or you can remove them all at once by clicking Edit, Delete Guides. Let's have a look at how else you could create this. We select the rectangle tool, but this time we don't create guides. We simply click with the rectangle tool once and we type in 3690, 6930 or the inches measurement, and we enter. So now we already have the rectangle. So instead of creating another rectangle, there is another tool I want to show you, which is really amazing. It's called the Offset tool. You can find it by clicking F, or you select it from your left toolbar. Now we click on the surface that we want to offset, but we don't release the mouse. We simply keep the mouse on and hover until we find the measure that we need, and then we release. And sometimes, as you can see, it's not that easy to find exactly the measure we need. So, as I said before, as long as you don't move your mouse again, you can always type in the measure and SketchUp is going to fix it. So let's type in 150 or 5.9 inches and then we click Enter. Since we did create already the inner rectangle of the kitchen, we actually need the outside walls. So let's go back by pressing Command Z or Control Z on PC, or you can use the undo and redo on top of your toolbar. Let's now select the offset tool again by clicking F, and this time we move to the outside of the rectangle. So we offset the surface outside of this rectangle. And here we go again, type in the measure we need, we enter, and we can use the tape to recheck the measurements. You will see that you may use a combination of those ways to create your lines and surfaces. It doesn't really matter which way you choose. If you prefer to work with guides or use the rectangle or the line tool right away. So it's just a matter of your preference. When it comes to showcasing windows, I usually measure a 50mm or a 2-inch frame to create a simple line. I can also duplicate a line that already exists by selecting it and using the M tool. You can also find it on your left toolbar. And I can duplicate this line. Once I select the line and I'm within my Move tool, I can press Option when using a Mac or Control when using a PC. Now you see that there is a little plus sign showing up. This indicates that you're copying the line, but only once. If you click the Option or the Alt key another time, you see a little figure that indicates that you will create multiple copies. Here we can also type in the measure we want to move the line to. Then I would need a middle glass panel for my window, so I snap into the midpoint of my line and use the line tool to create it. When we advance a little further in the course, I will show you on how to find pre-made 2D symbols like doors and windows and how to adjust them. For now, I would recommend you learn to draw them from scratch to understand how they work. Be careful when you move lines or surfaces, since right now they are not grouped, meaning they are sticky. So if you move a line or surface, it can mess up your drawing. So in case you move somewhere where you don't want to be, you can always use your escape button. When it comes to creating the door, I usually use the Pi tool. So I click on one point, then to the other, and I open the door 45 degrees. Okay guys, we're done for now. This lesson was to only showcase how you start with creating the really basics in drawing, based on a sketch layout. Feel free to recreate this if you are a complete beginner in SketchUp, or you move on if you already know how to create this. In the next lesson, we will dive into situation number 2, which is on how to import digital plans like JPEGs, PNGs, PDFs, and how to scale them up to have a base that we can use to create our floor plan.